Maya had been deciding which gym to join for 11 months. Not casually, seriously. With the kind of thoroughness she applied to everything that mattered to her, which meant spreadsheets, actual spreadsheets. She had a comparison document with 14 gyms listed across the rows and 19 criteria across the columns. Distance from apartment, monthly cost, equipment quality, class availability, parking, locker room reviews on Google, whether the free weight section was too crowded on weekday mornings, which she had determined by reading 67 reviews across 3 platforms. She had visited 4 of the 14 gyms in person. She had not joined any of them. She was 28 years old, and she was, by any honest measure, one of the most intelligent people in every room she occupied. Her colleagues relied on her analysis. Her friends came to her when they needed to think through something complicated. She was the person who saw the problem inside the solution before anyone else did, who found the flaw in the plan before the plan was implemented, who asked the question no one had thought to ask. This was genuinely useful in her work as a product designer, where thinking carefully before building saved months of wasted effort. It was considerably less useful in the rest of her life, where thinking carefully before doing had produced, over the previous 2 years, an almost perfect record of not doing. The gym was the most measurable example, but it was not the only one. There was the photography course she had researched for 4 months before concluding that the timing was not quite right. The timing had not become right since. There was the conversation she needed to have with her manager about the direction of her career, which she had been preparing for since March. It was now October. The preparation had produced 17 drafts of what she might say and 0 conversations. There was the apartment she had looked at in a neighborhood she loved, which was available and within budget, and which she had not applied for because she had spent 3 weeks researching the neighborhood's future development plans, and by the time she finished researching, the apartment was gone. She had analyzed her way out of the gym, the course, the conversation, and the apartment. She was thorough, she was careful, she was always, almost, about to be ready. The thing about Maya's overthinking was that it did not feel like overthinking from the inside. From the inside, it felt like responsibility, like due diligence, like the reasonable, adult behavior of someone who does not make impulsive decisions and does not have to live with the consequences of having acted before fully understanding the situation. From the inside, it felt like wisdom. It was only from the outside, and she had glimpses of this, uncomfortable ones she did not hold for long, that it looked like something else, like a person standing at the edge of a swimming pool, testing the water with 1 foot, reading about swimming technique, calculating the optimal entry angle, and never getting in, never getting wet. Her sister Lena was the opposite of Maya in almost every relevant way. Lena made decisions quickly, imperfectly, and without apparent distress. She had moved to a new city with 2 weeks of planning. She had changed careers with less research than Maya applied to buying a laptop. She had joined a gym within 48 hours of deciding she wanted to, which she had done by walking past one, looking through the window, and going inside. Maya found this both admirable and deeply unsettling. She had asked Lena once how she did it, how she decided things so quickly without being afraid of getting it wrong. Lena had looked at her for a moment. She said, "I get it wrong sometimes, but I fix it when I do, and then I'm still further along than if I hadn't tried." Maya had nodded. She had understood this intellectually. She had returned to her spreadsheet. The morning that forced her honesty was in November. She was at her desk at work, coffee going cold beside her laptop, when her colleague Ethan walked past and paused. He looked at her screen. She had been cross-referencing gym reviews for the past 40 minutes. At work, in the middle of a Tuesday morning, she had opened the tab to check something quickly, and 40 minutes had passed. He said, without judgment, just curiosity, "Are you still doing the gym research?" She looked at him. He was the kind of person who went for a run at 6 a.m. regardless of whether it was the optimal time or the optimal route. He had told her once that he ran the same neighborhood loop every morning, not because it was the best route, but because it was the route that already existed in his routine, and the point was to run, not to find the perfect path for running. She had thought, when he told her this, that she would find a better route before starting. She still had not started. "Yeah," she said, still figuring it out. He looked at the screen, at the spreadsheet, at the 19 columns and 14 rows. "Maya," he said carefully, "how long have you been figuring it out?" She did not want to answer this. 11 months, she said. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Can I tell you something that might be annoying?" She nodded. "You are never going to have enough information," he said. "There is always going to be one more review to read, one more gym to visit, one more criteria to add to the spreadsheet. The spreadsheet is not research. It is a way of feeling like you are doing something while making sure you never have to actually do something." She opened her mouth. He said, "I am not saying this to be unkind. I am saying it because I have watched you do this with the gym and the photography course and the apartment and the conversation with your manager, and I think you are one of the smartest people I know, and you are also somehow using all of that intelligence to stay exactly where you are." He walked away. She sat with her coffee going cold and her spreadsheet open. She thought about a story she had encountered once in a collection of old philosophical parables that she had found amusing at the time and found considerably less amusing now. There was once a centipede, the story went, who was remarkable for the fluidity and grace with which it walked. 100 legs, moving in perfect coordination, carrying the centipede through the world with an ease that other creatures admired. One day, a curious beetle stopped the centipede and asked a question. "You have 100 legs," the beetle said. "How do you decide which leg to move first? And once you move that one, how do you know which comes second and third? How do you coordinate them all without thinking about it?" The centipede had never been asked this question before. It stood still for a moment and thought about it. It thought about leg 1 and leg 2 and the relationship between them. It thought about the sequencing and the coordination and the mechanics of something it had been doing until this moment without thinking about it all. And then it tried to walk, and it could not. Not because anything had changed about its legs. Nothing had changed. All 100 were present and functional, exactly as they had always been. But now they were being thought about, and thought about they could not move. The thinking had interrupted the doing. The analysis had stopped the action. The centipede that had walked through the world with fluid ease now stood paralyzed by its own understanding of the complexity of walking. The beetle, feeling terrible, walked away. The centipede stood there for a long time. Maya sat at her desk. She thought about the centipede. She thought about the fact that she had been analyzing the gym for 11 months, and the gym had been there, available, every single day of those 11 months. She thought about what Ethan had said. The spreadsheet is not research. It is a way of feeling like you are doing something while making sure you never have to actually do something. She closed the spreadsheet. She sat there. She thought about James Clear, whose book Atomic Habits she had read twice and annotated carefully and applied to almost nothing, and something he had written that she had underlined and not acted on. He had written about the difference between motion and action. Motion, he wrote, is when you plan and strategize and research. Motion feels productive. Motion makes you feel like you are progressing toward the thing. But motion by itself never produces an outcome. Action is different. Action is the thing that actually produces the result. Action is joining the gym, not researching the gym, not planning to join the gym, not visiting 4 gyms to compare them. Joining one. We convince ourselves that motion is progress, he wrote, because motion feels safe. Motion cannot fail. You cannot fail at researching a gym. You cannot get it wrong in a way that has consequences. Motion protects you from the possibility of discovering that you tried and it did not work. And in protecting you from that possibility, it also protects you from the possibility of it working. Maya read this underlined passage on her phone. Then she put the phone down. Then she did something that felt unreasonably simple given 11 months of not doing it. She went to the gym 2 streets from her office, not because it had scored highest on the spreadsheet. It had scored 4th, because it was 2 streets away, and it was 11 in the morning, and she had 2 free hours before her next meeting. She walked in. She spoke to someone at the front desk. She joined. She did not use all 19 criteria. She did not visit the other 13 gyms. She picked up a schedule, chose a Tuesday evening class, and walked back to the office. The whole thing took 22 minutes. She sat at her desk and thought about 11 months. She thought about the photography course still unstarted, the conversation with her manager still unprepared, the apartment gone. She thought about the centipede, standing still, thinking about walking. She was not going to stop thinking. Thinking was genuinely part of what she was good at, and she was not interested in becoming someone who acted without reflection. That was not the lesson. The lesson was smaller and more specific. At some point, thinking about the thing must become doing the thing. The research must end and the enrollment must begin. The preparation must give way to the conversation. The comparison must be set aside and the door must be walked through. Not because you have enough information. You will never have enough information. But because at some point the centipede must simply walk without thinking about which leg goes first. She sent her manager a message that afternoon. She said, "Can we schedule 30 minutes this week? I want to talk about where I am headed." Her hands were slightly unsteady when she pressed send. Her manager replied within an hour. Thursday at 2, the message said. Maya looked at the reply. She had been preparing for this conversation since March. She had not once considered that the conversation would be this easy to start. She thought about all the other things she had not started. Then she opened a blank document, not a spreadsheet, just a blank document. At the top she wrote, "Things I am doing, not researching, not planning, doing." Below it she wrote the gym. Below that she wrote Thursday at 2. She looked at the list. 2 items. 2 things she had actually done in a day when she had been thinking about both of them for months. 2 items was more than 11 months of 19 columns had produced. She thought about the centipede, one leg at a time, without thinking about which one, just walking. She had spent 11 months asking which leg goes first. She had discovered, on a Tuesday in November, that the answer is simply, any of them, just any of them, and then the next, and then the next, until you look up and realize you have been walking for a while now. And the Beatles question doesn't matter anymore, because you are already somewhere.